Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
Adam Smith, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, back in 1776, talks about the invisible hand. The invisible hand is, in fact, the doctrine of the sovereignty of God and the doctrine of irresistible grace. But it had been transmuted into English rationalism that John Locke developed. John Locke, who sort of favored an impersonal God operating the world and the universe by an impersonal setting into motion of the gears of creation, if you will, and letting things run by themselves. And so what happened at the time of the Enlightenment was a diminution of the role of God in an understanding of the affairs of men, and a rise in the will of man and the idea of the mass man, right? The idea of democracy. And so in this, with the revolutionary era revolution, the idea of revolution sprung as a crooked weed out of the Reformation, a crooked, viney, and thistly weed out of the Reformation. And in that, of course, in the idea of Marxism, you have the hyper-individualism of the American, and you have Adam Smith and his doctrine of the invisible hand. Now, the invisible hand doctrine is truly a remarkable one because it has the sovereignty of God operating through mankind, but without his person being there, right? It's the hand of God, if you will. But the way it's explained in that famous volume is that the invisible hand is the sum of all the actors acting according to self-interest in the marketplace. And the freer the marketplace, the more rational it becomes, right? And the idea of a rational marketplace is certainly amazing and beautiful. And that is what people such as your host here, David Tulis, the classical liberal at the right-wing talk station, defend. I defend the invisible hand. And I would say, because I'm a Christian, I would say, well, it's really the hand of God in men as a whole. And how these arguments that Adam Smith develops and inspires for the free market are really ones that arise from God himself and from Revelation, right? In the 66 books of the Bible, there is this idea of liberty and freedom, which mankind had not known. Mankind had not known liberty until the arrival of the Israelites on the scene. And their law, which was given and understood to be admired as a shock among all the nations around them, all the tribes around them, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and the Kenites, many others, the Egyptians and others would see this law, this system of government that God gave to mankind, summarized in the tablets, that allowed for self-government and, in effect, allowed for society without law, right? A society without the king, a society without the president, without the Mayor Burks and his police departments and his administration, a society which is self-governing. That is what's in view in the idea of equity, especially summarized in the Ten Commandments, and all the attendant, what we call legislation, all the attendant rules that are the details of how the general principles work out in the particular. So, for example, let's say your neighbor borrows your mower, and it's a brand new Toro mower, $300 that you bought from Floyd's Hardware, and he's needing it. So you say, okay, go ahead. Let's say he runs on a rock and damages the shaft, badly mangles the blade, and messes up the shaft and the engine. Well, biblically, there's a solution to this problem. If you had been there with him as he was working, or B, you were not there with him when he was working, and you were in your house filling out papers or reading a story to a son. Right? If you're with the man using your borrowed equipment, then you are responsible for the damage, and the replacement of that engine or the whole thing is up to you. If you're not there, the replacement of that engine or that mower or its repair is up to the man who borrowed it, and that's a biblical concept. So that is a detail of the rule of equity on the eighth commandment, which is against theft, right? Theft is forbidden, but what's required in the eighth commandment is the proper minding of things that are borrowed, that have been lent to you. That is the duty, you might say a fiduciary duty that you have to that owner and to his lawnmower that you borrowed. And this particular rule, this statute, explains how the borrowed thing is repaired or paid for if it's broken by the borrower. And there are many others. What about in Leviticus, the killing of someone in your house? Well, if the thief breaks in at night and his life is forfeit by your hand, you do not face a capital trial for murder. However, if the thief is in your house during the day, you can't kill him. Because if you do kill him and it's during the day, your life is forfeit, and it's eye for eye, tooth for tooth, limb for limb. In other words, lex talionis applies. God's requirement for justice applies, and you, the killer of that thief, shall be slain for murder. And that law applies today. You can still see it in whether the DA investigates a killing by a homeowner of a thief and the circumstances of that, and that principle still applies today. You can't shoot the thief outside your house, but you could shoot him in your house, possibly, right? If you fire and you kill him, who's to say that he wasn't threatening your life? It can't be proven, so there's no real criminal case against you if it happens at night. In your house, outside your house, well, you can't shoot the thief fleeing your house. You just can't. That's murder. Okay, so these are rules that we have from the scriptures, and they are generally equitable. So the Scottish Enlightenment, which brought us free market economics, is borrowing heavily from Christianity without acknowledging the source. And in Christianity, in the Gospels, and in the free market analysis, we see our direction and we see our course as people here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. In many ways, we have a free market here, and well, listen, we're going to have a free market even if we were in the Soviet Union here in Chattanooga. We would have a free market with constraints. This is David Tulis and caller. You're live on the air. What's on your mind?
Hello?
You're on the air with David Tulis. Do you have a comment? No. So the idea that we're looking at is the idea of liberty and the free market. Even if we were in the Soviet Union, let's just say there is a free market. Even in China, when Mao Zedong was involved in the killing of 30 million people for an idea, right? A Marxist idea, which is a Christian heresy of the perfect society, the perfect planned society where everyone is so fitted into the commune that he need not be told what to do. That is that is the new man, the new Soviet man, the new red man. He knows exactly what to do. He does his part on the collective farm. He gives he takes what he's given. Is perfectly content. That is a Christian heresy. Even in China, when there were 30 million people being killed by the Reds, there was still free market. Price, the whole idea of price, making things available, the whole idea of price controls. If you have price controls, you cannot have supply, right? That wipes out supply. Anytime there's a command on what something is paid, what something costs, reduces the liberty in that market. So a price control witnesses to the power of the free market. And we have price control stories in the press today touching on the price of gas. And Republicans, of course, who are not free market people, they will say we have price controls in Tennessee. In Texas, there are price control statutes that forbid the raising of prices for fuel and other things in an emergency. And if you do it, you can't. It's impossible to raise price. In other words, if you run a store, you're going to be wiped out quickly, and because the rational mechanism of pricing cannot be allowed to function. And so the abuse of the statute, all these price gouging statutes, you have to understand, are abusive. They're ungodly because they guarantee immediate shortages, and they do not let the marketplace allocate the need. Right? The need. Well, you say, well, how is need allocated? Well, think about this. If let's say you have let's say a storm is coming and you're leaving town. For some people, it's kind of an adventure. They don't have to fill their gas tank up. because they have less demand on them. But other people, it's essential that they be able to get out because they have an old person, two old people in their car, and they have to go some distance to a relative far out, or far in rather, inland, and they have to have the fuel. The person who doesn't have to have the fuel won't pay the $10 a gallon price because I don't need that much gas. I can probably just get away. And so that person should be dissuaded from making the purchase because the price is $10 a gallon or $20 a gallon. The person who really needs to get out, really needs that gallon of fuel, he will pay it because of necessity, right? His claim on necessity is so great that he will pay the price, and he's glad to get it. He's glad to pay the price just so he can get it. But in a price gouging statutory regime where the price of gas has to be $3 a gallon, as demand soars, suddenly the supplier is out, and he sold all the gas that was in his tank to people who really didn't need it, right? Who bought it because it was convenient. They were there. Well, let's just fill it up. And so the tank, underground tank, is quickly emptied, and people who really need the fuel for desperate reasons just can't get it. That's what price gouging regimes do, and they are anti-market. So even in the abuse of the marketplace, you can see the claims of the marketplace. In other words, even in adultery, you can see the claims of marriage, right? Even in all abuse of what's right and true and good and free, you can see the claims of the right and true and good and free. You can see how man-made systems of imposition don't work. The non-free market economy doesn't work, and it guarantees misallocation and friction and heat in the economy, and all those are signs of the marketplace. And so the marketplace, you could say, lives even in stagnating centralized economy, even in highly centralized debt-based economies such as ours, where there's huge friction, huge misallocation, huge fraud. I mean, the welfare system we have, Medicare, Medicaid, are rife with fraud. Billions and billions of dollars a year are lost to fraud. That it has to be that way. You cannot have a system like that and not have fraud and privateering. It's just impossible. So all those evidences of things that we say are bad and wrong, shortages, price increases in insurance, all of those are signs of the marketplace. The marketplace has to have those things, and the marketplace is always in evidence. You can always see it. What we want, though, is for there to be a genuine freedom in the market. Here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, where there are no claims of superiority, no claims of ownership of activity or assets that are not bought or earned, and that is a free market. And we don't have, in many respects, a free market in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. If we did, people here would be 2 or 3 times richer than they are now. And I would say that it's probably even more. We could be, in nominal dollars, 5 times richer than we are now if we had a free market. And the prospect of a free market in the Chattanooga area is not clear. And I'd say it's probably not likely unless there are other, you might say, mega political or geopolitical things that happen elsewhere. For example, the global debt collapse. That is something that's ahead, and some analysts think is very, very near to us now, in which there will be in the market, in the mass, right, in the invisible hand, a recognition that we have barred ourselves to prosperity, and that the prosperity that we have, the gold all around us, right, the fine new trucks, the shopping malls, the new houses, the mortgages, are all just pyrite and not real gold. Real gold is real. Real silver is real, and a free market is real. And if we don't have a free market, and we have people who are skimming the economy and strip mining the economy and strip mining others, right? Strip mining the taxpayers. Those economies all fail. Look at the Soviet Union. Look at failure in every state-controlled economy that you have. Venezuela is a perfect example of that. I've not mentioned much about Venezuela because I figure you're keeping up on your own, understanding that Venezuela has to be that way. It has to be that an exporting economy is short on everything from toilet paper to heating fuel. And it comes about because of socialism, the idea that we have to have collective control of natural resources. I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a very bad mood. And in fact, a few minutes ago, I called the managing partner of the radio station. I said, Mike, just take me off the air. I'm tired. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm fed up. I'm just fed up. And my listener doesn't need to hear me say anything. Let's play my national substitute, which is Mike Gallagher, the national host. And I thought, well, he was on the phone with a salesman. So I said, okay, well, just never mind, Mike. Just let me talk to the listener and explain why I'm in such a bad have such a bad state of mind and a bad state of heart. It is, of course, these are spiritual problems in the unspiritual that you must say come personally to me, David Tulis, your host here on the David Tulis Show. But think about this: the setting of interest rates in a real market, they don't care about whether you're white or black, right? Demand for a good or services is met. There's a need. There's a meeting of that need by a provider, and that marketplace doesn't care what your religion is, right? It doesn't care your skin color. It doesn't really care about your sex, whether you're American or whether you're a Guatemalan. It doesn't matter what your opinions are. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Buddhist. If you need a computer service repair, like we have one of our advertisers makes computers and services computers. It doesn't really matter that you can get that repair done. Apart from your ideas about your heritage, right? Or apart from your ideas about the rights of people, right? Many of these things that are in the press today, including the 2:00 Tuesday announcement downtown, I think at 10 o'clock in front of the county courthouse by Mayor Jim Coppinger. These kinds of things are apart from the marketplace, where it doesn't matter what your beliefs are about the Confederacy or the Union. If you need advertising, well, you go to a radio platform like mine, right? In a way, it doesn't matter what my ideas are or what Sean Hannity's ideas are starting at 3 o'clock. It doesn't really matter what Bloomberg is reporting in the 1 o'clock Power Show or the 2 o'clock International Finance and Capital program from Bloomberg. Those accounts of business and corporations and trends and credit markets, those are all important and valuable, and those things are functioning apart from anybody's particular view about black people versus white people, or whether people love their country or don't love their country, right? Whether people such as those protesting 2 Thursdays ago down in Coolidge Park, whether they're right about the market or not, whether their grievances are just or not, whether a person is queer or heterosexual. Many of those personal positions and personal ideas don't matter in the marketplace. The question is, can you provide a service to someone who needs it? And then, if you can, well, then many things will start working, right? There is a prospect of harmony in a free market. There's more prospect in a free market than in a controlled economy, such as the one we have today. Now, there are many aspects of freedom that so many that I think it's hard sometimes to perceive the controls that are there, that are always there, sent like sentinels against you, waiting for you to trip, waiting for you to make a misstep. And that would be, the bean counting regulatory world that in many ways is very powerful, but in many other ways is impotent. It's simply impotent, and millions of people simply ignore it. They ignore it, and some of them are caught. Right, some of them are caught. They're prosecuted civilly, and they have a bad couple years on their calendars. But the marketplace functions best when there is liberty, and where if you have a gift, that you can sell that gift or that product or that invention or that talent to someone who finds it valuable. And that is a free market. That's where innovation is. That's where service is. And I think we're all going to be better off in Chattanooga and Hamilton County if we think about other people and what do they need. So, for example, here at New Radio, I'm involved in the advertising business. What I do is connect you, my listener, with my advertiser. Right? You need your ducts cleaned, so you go to Ducks, the Indoor Air Professionals in Middle Valley. That's a family-owned business. Joan and Dick Thompson run that shop with their son, and they have a granddaughter who works in the front office, and that business is there to help you. And people like you who need your duct work done to get the mold out, you call through me, through my telling you about this business, you call that business. And so that's why I'm in the media. The media is the entity, the body between two separate and disparate groups. You're in one group and the advertiser is in the other group. And so the advertiser comes to me, David Tulis, at Nooga Radio and says, how can you connect me to your listener, like the Sean Hannity listener, right? The man who listens to Bloomberg and always buys expensive dinners on a credit card, and has major investments in treasuries, right? How do you, David Tulis at Nooga Radio, connect me with that person? And that they want you to shop, right? They want you to come to they want you to come to Crown Chrysler and buy a fine pickup truck. That's what you need to do. You go to Crown Chrysler and buy a fine Chrysler pickup truck or a new Jeep, right? They want you through me, and that's the service I provide. Is the medium. I'm the medium between you two parties, and I make a living by providing the best service. So in that field, the media field, I provide that service, getting prosperity to both sides. You, the buyer, perhaps of a new Jeep, and Crown, the seller of a new Jeep over on Auto Row, off of Highway 153. And if I can make a living doing that, then yay for me. That gives me time to talk to you, to do other things, to be the journalist that I am, the writer with the biggest pen in Chattanooga. I'm just a blogger. I'm just a blogger, David Tulis, who runs Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. I'm just a writer, just an ordinary writer and editor. And yet here, by God's providence, I have this radio tower, this 180-foot radio tower in Saudi Daisy. And that's 12:40 a.m. That's my pen. So here on this program, we talk about David Roddy and Mayor Burke. We talk about the coming trend of militarization. We ask questions about whether the mayor is genuinely concerned about reform or not. David Roddy seems to have an impulse toward the military side of policing, toward crackdowns and the like. And the mayor seems to be thinking more in terms of ending the abuse of extrajudicial killings by police officers, which have taken, last year, they killed nearly 1,200 Americans, whereas 24 Americans in the past decade have been killed by terrorists. This year alone, cops have killed more than 800 American people. Isn't that more than 24 terrorists in killing Americans in a decade? That's quite a comparison. That's a great contrast. And that figure is supplied by an anti-gun group, Politicom.com, by the way. So these are questions that come up, and that's my job, is to explore those issues. And that's what I'm paid to do. I'm paid to be the journalist, the writer, exploring these issues in the context of the free market, right? And that's my argument here, David Tulis. Am I in despair? Well, I guess in some respects I am. But the argument I make, that I've thought now for several years, the argument to make is love your neighbor and buy local. It's a wonderful argument. It is the argument of this radio station, even though not every host, of course, makes it. Mostly it's just me in the morning at the 9 o'clock David Tulis show. Love your neighbor and buy local. Local economy and the free market. Those are arguments I think worth making. They're kind of winsome. They're very weak, right? They don't stand on power. They don't stand on credit. They are inherently human. And they are, I like to suggest, the fruits of Christianity. They're the fruits of the grace doctrine. Because every entrepreneur has to be about grace. He has to be thinking about his customer. If he thinks about his customer, he will prosper, because he prospers that customer by selling to him or to her the goods or services that customer needs. That is the marketplace. And it best works. It works most profitably to all when there is less or no regimentation, less or no state. The state is the enemy of all these things. The state is the enemy. It is in many ways our God and our idol, and it's hard to get disentangled from it. And its many claims through force, through the sword, upon things that should be gentle and soft, like education. How is education handled competently by the military, by the state? It can't be. This is David Tulis, and I'm asking you, is there hope? Is there hope?
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader, Nooga Radio.